Hey everyone, welcome back to another video from A Man Talks NRL SuperCoach. We have just finished round 18 and wow, that was crazy. Big scores for SuperCoach and in real NRL games. Sunday was a bit of a wacky one. We had really exciting Broncos and Tigers match. The Bulldogs and the Rabbitohs turned on really entertaining game that was really back and forth, and Lachlan Lewis just deciding to tackle Cody Walker at halftime was just the icing on the cake that I needed. But a really fun round of NRL to watch and a lot of SuperCoach to get our teeth sunk into. Unfortunately, there are some big injuries that we also have to take note of, which are really going to have big SuperCoach implications. So as always, in the comments below, let me know what you scored, what your trades were, who did you captain, and how do you think you're going to play it from next week and for the rest of the season. And if you guys enjoy the video, as always, we'd really appreciate a thumbs up. Do please consider subscribing to the channel as well, and let's get straight into the roundup of round 18. So a quick summary of what I ended up doing. So I actually ended up going down the route of nuffing out Christian Welch to a cheapie and upgrading Mitch Barnett to a day Fifita. I really wanted to get in Fifita for this week. As I mentioned, he was my number one priority and a lot of other people's number one target for this week. And I bit the bullet, ended up going for him. He scored 68 and Mitch Barnett, who I actually traded out for, scored 61. So really it was only a net benefit of 7 points. But in the long term, I'm thinking that this was probably the right move. It created a little bit of cash for me. Yes, it did burn 2 trades, which isn't ideal. But I was still happy enough to get Dave Fifita, who I thought was robbed, by the way, but we'll get straight into that in a little bit. And I also ended up scoring 1,429, so it was actually a very good round for me. I had a lot of players do really well, which was really good. Captaincy did let me down just a little bit. I was hoping to maybe push above the 1,500, but a 1,429 I can't really be too disappointed by, so hopefully that means green arrows and improvement in my ranking. But let's see how it goes from lockout. But yeah, overall, quite happy with how the week went for myself. First game of the round was the Titans taking on the Eels, and the Eels were just too good in the end, 26 points to 8. I really think it was, the Eels obviously dominated here in this SuperCoach point scoring, as you would think. Ryan Madison, Clint Gutherson, Nathan Brown, all turning up. Madison had one of his best games that I've seen him play in years. He was breaking the line, offloading, scored a try of his own, tackle breaking, all of his tackles as usual, on his way to a massive 135. So hopefully, I mentioned that Madison is someone who you can have as good depth for the run home. Hopefully you guys didn't trade him out, because that's obviously an amazing score from him and super well. And Clint Gutherson, 110, he was my vice captain. I thought with him goal kicking against the Titans team, who do leak quite a few points to fullbacks, I thought he would be a very good vice captain, and he scored 110, but I didn't end up using the vice captain loophole. I thought it was a little bit on the lower end, so I just kept it, but 110, obviously I'm very happy with that. Nathan Brown, this is now his 4th week of posting really big scores. First 3 weeks prior to this, he was hitting around 75. Now he's hit 100 with a line break. I think he had like a line break, a try assist thrown in here as well. So some points that he probably wouldn't normally get, but still he has put in a really good month of SuperCoach scoring, and definitely probably someone you can consider as a second row forward replacement, because as we'll find out a little bit later in the video, second row forward is going to be a hot topic of discussion in the next week. And Reid Marnie, I did mention I'd want to see a week out of him. Maybe I should have pulled the trigger, because he's come away with 98. He looked really good, scored a try of his own, got a try assist thrown in there as well, and obviously he always makes a bunch of tackles, so really big game from him. And yeah, 98 points, very solid there. Some other very good contributions here from like a Hayes Dunster with a 60. Sean Lane also scored a try on his way to a 64. Dylan Brown also scored the first try of the game on his way to a 63, although that haircut, I think that should be worth a -10, because that haircut is atrocious. Zay Papali'i, a bit of a quieter game actually from him, 54. He did go off for a bit of a HIA assessment, so that definitely did dock his minutes a little bit, but he's so highly owned that I don't think it's really much of a difference maker in terms of ranking. Those are the main contributors out of the Eels, but overall very solid performance from them. For the Titans, Brian Kelly was their best performer with a 99 on the night, and he looked quite dangerous. He scored a try. He was playing at times, seemed like he was stationed a lot on the wing, so he was able to finish off a lot of attacking moves. So I think he had like 3 line breaks in this game, obviously quite a few tackle busts as well, on his way to a pretty big score. Dave Fifita obviously was the number one priority for myself and a lot of other teams. 68 points in the end. Fifita did score a bit of a fluky try, but he also, was a bit robbed. He was robbed, in my opinion, at the very end. I think it was Philip Sammy. He just had the ball knocked back, and Fifita ran on his way to score a try, and he would have been on 100 plus if that went through. But they called it back, and it was really annoying. I don't think the bunker realized how many super coaches they had just pissed off, essentially, when they took away that try. But yeah, what could have been, to be honest, I don't think he would have deserved that 100. There were just times where he didn't look very involved, and in the end he started taking a few more runs on his way to a 68. But this is the benefit of him, in that in games where he doesn't look involved, he still somehow manages to come away with a decent score, and he could have had even more. So that's the reason why you want to get some of these guys. In terms of other decent scores from the Titans, Ash Taylor had to take on a lot more of the playmaking duties with Jamal Fogarty going off with a compound fracture in his finger. So Taylor got on his way to a 63, but I don't think he's going to be very highly owned. No one else scored above 60 for the Titans. I think Eels were pretty dominant in the first half. The Titans were able to keep it tight in the second, but the damage had already been done, and a very, very comprehensive win for the Eels. So the second game on Friday was Manly taking on the Dragons, and Manly, a bit of an opposite to the Eels, had a very, very good second half and put the sword to the Dragons, winning 32 points to 18. Josh Schuster came back for Manly, and boy oh boy was I happy to see him. 96 points, he had a hand in a couple of tries, looked very, very threatening every time he ran. He just needs to learn how to look when he passes, in my opinion. Sometimes he loves to throw a no-look pass, but obviously it's all a bit flashy, but he's a supreme talent, so obviously very happy that I've held to this point. I feel like I needed to get those points to Joshy, so he repaid the faith with 96. Hamali Olikuatu, 95. He's been so good on an absolute tear in the past 4 or 5 weeks. Definitely someone I'm actually really seriously looking at now in second row forward. He just seems to be getting attacking stats with every game that he plays. Gets a lot of tackle breaks. He offloads quite a bit as well, and Manly draw is pretty good for the rest of the season. So I feel like those attacking stats are going to continue. And so yeah, 95 points from him is again a really, really strong performance. Ruben Garrick as well, 78. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that you want. 78 points where he didn't really look that threatening for a lot of the game. He obviously just kicked a lot of goals, so that definitely does add like 20 points to his score. And then he actually had like a 5 or 10, I think it was like 10 tackle busts or something crazy like that. So, he got a lot of tackle busts and on his way to a pretty solid 78, and didn't score any tries or get any try assists or something like that. So really, really solid from him. There were a few good performances out of Manly, as you'd expect, putting on 32 points. You had Kieran Foran with 76, who played a beautiful ball for Brad Parker for one of their tries as well. Moses Sully had a pretty decent game, scoring 74. Morgan Harper also scored a try on his way to 61, although he doesn't tend to pass the ball, so poor old Jason Saab down the bottom there at 11 points. Yeah, Jason Saab just reminding us why at least I traded him out in the very beginning of the season. Unfortunate news was for Carl Lawton, who did actually have to go off with injury quite early in the game. What looked like apparently it was some kind of back pain, although I think he has been cleared of that and was just precautionary, so that's good news in the end. But hence, he came off the field quite early, so he had some extra minutes for like a Cade Cust, who actually ended up scoring a try as well. Very dubious one at that, but he scored 58. For the Dragons, not really too much to talk on. I don't think too many people are going to be, investing in their players. I mean, Jack Bird and Josh Maguire both had pretty solid games, Supercoach-wise. Jack Bird with 84. That did include a try assist. He was goal kicking as well, so that definitely helped to boost his score up. Josh Maguire also scored his first try in years, so I think that's how he got to his 78. Josh Kerr, 69, a lot of base points in there. And Andrew McCullough with a 66, he did get a try assist for one of the Dragons' tries. And Jared Beale also scored a try on his way to a 56. But yeah, really not much else aside of that. I mean, Ben Hunt, backing up from Origin, scored 47. He was actually on a lot lower with not that much time left in the game, so he did get some attacking points towards the back end of the game, which definitely helped make his score a little bit more respectable. But overall, Dragons players, I'm just not really interested in any. Ben Hunt is probably the main one, to be honest. And with Manly, obviously no Daly Cherry Evans. He was ruled out at the very last minute in the 1 hour team kickoff news. Tom Trbojevic, we all knew he wasn't going to back up. But yeah, Manly going to be very, very dangerous when they get those two guys back, as well as Jake Trbojevic. So definitely looking at investing in more of their players, like an Olikuatu for sure. So the first game on Saturday was the Cowboys taking on the Roosters, with the Roosters winning a pretty entertaining match, 34 points to 18. Firstly, I just want to speak about Hamiso Tabuai-Fidow. He was filling in at fullback with Val Holmes obviously being out injured, and I just love watching the guy play. The way that he runs, he just glides across the field. He's so quick, and he's an amazing talent. Unfortunate that he's a Queenslander and not New South Wales, but he's an amazing sight to see when he gets out in open space, and he had a very, very good game, breaking tackles, scored a try on his way to a big 98. Reece Robson also had a very good game for the Cowboys, scoring 96. That did include a try as well. And Scott Drinkwater has been putting some pretty decent scores together, actually, with a couple of tries in this game, on his way to an 80. Jason Taumalolo, 72 points. Is he back? He played 60 minutes and, a lot of tackle breaking, a lot of runs. This is the Taumalolo that we know. Given that Tohu Harris has been injured, and unfortunately for the rest of the season, Taumalolo is looking like a very strong consideration in our second row forward, as it does look like he's put together a couple of nice games back to back. and he could be back to that kind of tackle busting, 250 plus run meters Tamalolo that we all know, and is a supreme asset for Supercoach. So definitely looking at him very seriously for the next few weeks as well in our Supercoach teams. Apart from that, though, I mean, there were some other good scores, like you have Mitch Dunn, Javid Bowen, both at 68, but I'm really not looking at anyone else, I think, out of the Cowboys. On the Roosters side, given they scored 34 points, plenty of big scores here out of them. Matt Ukavalu, quick shout out to him. I do have him in my team, and that second try that he scored right on the buzzer was absolute junk. But I was loving it. I was like, this is exactly what I need. And so 123 points from him, scoring a double. So really, really happy with that. Sam Walker had an amazing game as well. Had a hand in like a couple of tries, I think. Had a try of his own towards the end of the game. Goal kicking, although at times that doesn't help him because he's not quite the best goal kicker, so he does lose a lot of points for that. But yeah, a big game from Sam Walker if you have held to this point or you brought him in a couple of weeks ago. He's been pretty decent. I think he scored around 66 last week and a big 120 here. His halves partner Drew Hutchinson had like 3 try assists, so he had a big game, 119. Joey Manu, when he plays at fullback, we know how damaging he is. He also scored a try and 89 points. Angus Crichton came off the bench. It was last minute team news that he was coming off the bench, and he still manages to get 79. That did include a try, but that's the benefit of him. He has got that attacking upside, playing on an edge, and he always is very involved, even in defense as well. He likes to make a lot of tackles. So yeah, I think he would have been really heavily benched. Actually, I think a lot of people seeing that he was playing off the bench probably would have kept him on, not even on their reserves, but just in their non-players. That really stings as well. 79 points sitting there not scoring for you. But anyway, we'll move on for next week if that was one of you in that situation. Other 70-point scorers was Billy Smith with a 77. Victor Radley had a 75, so also a very handy hooker, second row forward option if you've gone for him. Satili Tupanua also scored a try, so on his way to a pretty nice 71. So yeah, some big scores out of the Roosters, and not really much else I think to speak of out of them in terms of the points. I mean, we can touch on Dan Tupou though real quickly. 54 points. It just doesn't seem like he's getting the quality ball playing on the left side compared to, say, like the right hand side. Drew Hutchinson could be a part of that. He doesn't tend to pass the ball quite that much, but yeah, he just wasn't getting any quality ball to get any major attacking stats. But this is the benefit of him. He won't give you any really bad scores because he does have tremendous base. So 54, but you really want those big 100 plus scores out of him. He's just not quite getting it at the moment, which is a bit of a shame. Roosters' draw for the rest of the season is still pretty decent. There are some tough matchups in there, but they have got some good ones. So he's still probably worth investing in my opinion, but I do feel like now maybe there are some better teams to target and some better players that we can go for with more upside than a Tupou. Second game on Saturday was the Raiders taking on the Sharks, and the Raiders taking this one out 34 points to 18. Big winner here is obviously Corey Hawiranaya with a massive 124 post updates. Really happy that I held on to him. I know unfortunately a lot of people did sell him for Fafita, and that trade has just not worked out this week. That is just really unlucky, but I'm really glad that I've held on to him. Obviously he does sometimes show glimpses of this like really high upside, and basically all of it came together in this one particular match because he was getting a try assist, he got offloads, tackle bust. He has that bit of a Fafita sideways run where he just bounces off tackles and just tackle bust. So he's just racking up the points. So really happy with that 124 points from him. Xavier Savage is an absolute weapon. The guy was so good. 114 points from him. I know he was a bit of a popular cheapie last week, and if you did manage to actually play him this week, that's really worked in your favor because that's a big score now, and he might potentially be a downgrade option for next week if people are still looking to try to create money, or even just add some additional depth in your center wing. Given that next week will be his third game, it'll probably go quite up a bit in price. So a big 114 from him, and I was really impressed by his overall performance. Hudson Young and Jordan Rapana also scored tries for the Raiders on their way to big scores. Hudson Young had a massive 103 and Jordan Rapana with a 79, so he's put together some decent scores over the past few weeks if anyone did jump on him. I don't think there's really much else to consider out of the Raiders. I mean, CHN is probably the most highly owned player. I mean, you've got Ryan James all the way down there in 11 points, a bit of an auto emergency nightmare. I know a lot of people who eventually did the vice-captain loophole on Nico Hines, they probably had to cop a Ryan James score, although I think Nico Hines probably made up for that. In the Sharks, you got Jesse Raymond as their top scorer with 68, as he did manage to find the try line, combined with his base, on his way to a pretty solid score of 68. Teague Wilton also was pretty solid on his way to a 61. No one else out of the Sharks scored above 60. I mean, we just have to kind of, talk about SJ and the lack of points that he gave. 17 points. He's not goal kicking, which is really unfortunate. Braden Trindle has taken over the goal kicking, and he's a very, very good goal kicker. Until Matt Moylan comes back into the team, I don't think we'll see Johnson goal kick until Trindle comes out of the team. Whether or not that happens, I don't actually quite know. But yeah, it seems like ever since SJ signed his contract for the Warriors, he's just kind of dropped off a cliff in terms of his overall performances. Doesn't look very threatening. The overall attack for the Sharks just did not look very good. So yeah, only the 17 points out of SJ is really, really frustrating. Both of my kind of recent trade-ins of halves of SJ and Cody Nikorima, both have kind of flopped on me in the past couple of weeks. So yeah, not ideal. And with trades running so low, I think SJ, I don't know if he's a priority sell given that they're going to verse the Bulldogs next week. But yeah, obviously not very happy with that performance from him. Some other decent scores came out of like a Ronaldo Mulatalo with 50 points, Aiden Tolman 53, and Toby Rudolph 57. So just a lot of the forwards getting amongst it. Sione Katoa also came away with 50. So all three of the kind of backs that I've highlighted before with the Sharks, not coming away with horrible scores. Raymond 68 and 50 for both of the wingers, so it's not too bad. But yeah, not really much else to talk about. I mean, Will Kennedy, someone who's kind of been owned. I mean, I think the number one player in SuperCoach actually owns him. He only scored 41, so it just doesn't quite have that high upside of your other gun fullbacks. So yeah, overall, not too many relevant SuperCoach scores out of this. I think CHN is the big one though, and Xavier Savage just showing his class on his way to a big score here. So the final game on Saturday was the Storm taking on the Knights, and just what else there has to be said about the Melbourne Storm? 48 points to 4. I think this is like the 11th time in the season that they've scored 40 or more points on an opposition. They're just looking like the premiership favourites. Even a fully fit Penrith, I don't even know if they could beat these guys. The way that they're playing, they're not even themselves fully fit, the Melbourne Storm. So yeah, it's just freaky how good they are. And Nicho Hynes, what a gun. 166 points. Probably maybe up there with one of the SuperCoach buys of the season. If you bought him at 296k, and he's just turned into the best centre wing option in SuperCoach by far, and probably one of the best SuperCoach players overall. Massive score here of 166. If you did vice captain Nicho Hynes, 100% I would have vice captain Loophole that. I went with Gutherson, so obviously I couldn't use it, but I was happy enough to see 166 points from Nicho Hynes. And there are some reports that George Jennings is also out for 6 to 8 weeks with a suspected PCL injury. Potentially we might see Hynes maybe play in the back line like in the centres if Pappenhausen does come back next week. So that is something to consider, because if he is still playing 80 minutes and goal kicking in this red hot Melbourne team, I don't see how I can sell him, to be honest. Oh yeah, and remember a few days ago when I said, Cam Munster doesn't really have that much high upside, so there's probably better options that you can consider. Well yeah, that just backfired straight away, because he scored 115 and was very heavily involved here. Scored a try, set up another try of his own, and he just constantly was very, very threatening on his way to a big score of 115. So yeah, egg on my face, just cementing himself as one of the better 5'8 options to go for. And Justin Olam had a very, very big game here as well, scoring 124. So a lot of the Storm players having big scores here. Jerome Hughes with a 96. He scored a try and set up another try of his own. So again, showing his high upside in the halfback position. He did miss the last 25 minutes of the game with what was, I think, a bit of a calf cork injury or something like that. I think a lot of it was precautionary, so I don't think I'd be too concerned. It seems like round 19 he will be playing. Obviously, we'll wait on Teamless Tuesday to confirm that, but I'm pretty confident that Hughes will play next week based on the reports that I'm hearing. George Jennings, as I mentioned, he looks like he's going to be out for quite a while, but he left at least his owners with a decent score of 85 after scoring a double. Brandon Smith keeps getting it done, 76 points here. Those are the best performances out of the Melbourne Storm, and probably the guys that you're actually looking to consider. I mean, your Munsters, your Hynes, your Hughes, etc. So yeah, a lot of big points from the big SuperCoach options. On the other side of things, for the Knights, you have Mitch Barnett was actually the top scorer with 61 points. So he played a lot of minutes because David Klemmer actually failed his HIA, and so obviously there's going to be more of a need for minutes played in the middle. So Barnett was able to play a little bit extra minutes and scored 61. Very, very solid outing from him. As I mentioned, I did sell him for Fifita, and that only netted me an additional 7 points, but I think in the long term, I'm happy enough with that decision. As you can see, there's just not many points on offer here out of the Knights, only scoring 4 in NRL and getting absolutely dominated in this match. Your best scorers are in the forwards. You've got Jacob Saifidi with 50, Jaden Brayley with 47, Connor Watson off the bench just is the Mr. Fix-It for the Knights with 48. He played at fullback for the second half because unfortunately Kalen Ponga did not play the second half. He had a bit of a HIA issue in the first half. I've heard some reports apparently that he was fit to play, but apparently the coach just let him rest for the second half. Obviously he's just backing up from Origin, and the game was lost at halftime. I think it was like 36-0, something crazy like that at halftime. So I'm not sure how, if that report is true or not, but yeah, Ponga only 9 points as his team was dominated, and he didn't play the second half. So yeah, if you jumped on Ponga this week, that was obviously really, really unlucky and unfortunate. Obviously Melbourne Storm is a tough matchup, but you wouldn't be expecting 9 points from Ponga. But this just means that in a couple of weeks, when most people want to get on him in round 20, he should be nice and cheap, which is very, very nice to see as a non-owner of his. Tyson Frizzell is someone I've mentioned as a pretty decent, maybe pod second row forward. He only scored 43 here, but this is kind of what you'd expect. I mean, this is their toughest matchup. They've got the Roosters next round, so obviously another tough matchup, but the Roosters do concede more points than the Melbourne Storm. So I still think, the Knights have got their toughest matchup out of the way, and they should have a nice run for the rest of the season. So I'm still backing players like Frizzell to have a good end to the season. But overall, in this particular matchup, they had no chance against the red-hot Melbourne Storm. So the first game on Sunday was the Warriors taking on the Panthers, with the Warriors just losing this one out 16 points to 30. Panthers in the second half just had an absolute roll on the Warriors, who were decimated by injuries, unfortunately. I mean, the big talking point out of this game is obviously big injuries for Tohu Harris, who it looks like has suffered, unfortunately, an ACL injury. So that's 6 to 9 months on the sidelines for him. So that's really, really unfortunate. One of the good guys, I think, in the NRL. I don't know anyone who hates Tohu Harris. He's just a solid guy who seems like he plods along with his work and is very important for the Warriors. But yeah, obviously for SuperCoach purposes, he was very popular around round 16, round 17, and since then, it's just been a roller coaster with him. He had that AC joint issue, so he only scored like 20 something. He missed round 17, and then now he's got this ACL injury, so he only scored 6 points here, even though he was named to start. So yeah, that's an end of the Tohu Harris fiasco of the past few weeks, and we'll be definitely discussing a lot of second row forward replacements in our next week's video. So definitely stay tuned for that if you're looking to see who to switch to. But your obvious candidates are going to be like your day for feeder. But now we have a lot of options available in the second row forward, like Cam Murray, Tyson Frizzell, Hamala Ulukwatu. So definitely a lot of options to consider as a replacement for Tohu Harris moving forward. Other injuries are Roger Tuivasa-Sheck also getting a HIA and missing obviously most of the game. I think it was around the 15th minute that he got that. So a big loss for the Warriors. Rocco Berry also went off an injury, as did Wade Egan. So yeah, it's just the Warriors actually had no bench for the second half, which was good news for the front row forward of Matt Lodge and also Adam Fanua-Blake, who both scored massive points here. Matt Lodge had 95, that did include a try assist, and Fanua-Blake playing big minutes on his way to an 80. So Fanua-Blake has been one of the better purchases in the past few weeks after playing big minutes in that one game when Harris was injured, and again in the situation here as well. Reece Walsh also had a very solid game, scoring 81 points. He's an absolute gun, scored a try and set up another try of his own, which hasn't actually come into this pre-update score of 81. I am expecting him to be paid a try assist, so I wouldn't be surprised to see his score go up into the 90s as well. He does look to still be goal kicking, so definitely a nice string to his bow if you are looking to pick him up, as the Warriors do have a fantastic run home to the end of the season. Jazz Tavanga also benefited from playing bigger minutes, scoring 73 here. He generally does have quite good PPM, so when he does play the bigger minutes, he does definitely get a lot more points. Those were the main kind of talking points out of SuperCoach scoring for the Warriors. Moving on to the Panthers, we had Viliama Kikau scoring a double, so he scored a nice 90 points here for any owners who are still holding on to him. Brian To'o just keeps getting it done. Probably the number one centre wing that we can have, aside from Nico Hines actually. 88 points playing on the wing, scored a try, always gets through a mountain of work, so really happy with Brian To'o. Tyrone May actually had like 3 try assists in this game, so he actually had a pretty decent game. Was probably his best game I've seen him play in quite a while, which probably maybe isn't saying much, but that might be being harsh on him. But yeah, 87 points, very nicely done from him. Charlie Staines doing what we're not expecting Charlie Staines to do, which is score well in SuperCoach. 70 points. He scored a double here as well. So if anyone is still hanging around to Charlie Staines, I don't know. I've sold him a while ago. He's been a bit of an afterthought for me, but yeah, 70 points, still pretty decent. And other players who scored above 60 for the Panthers included Liam Martin with 68, James Fisher-Harris with 65, played a big role here. Moses Leota, 63, I haven't really seen him score too well recently, so that's a pretty big score from him. Matt Burton scored 54, so he was solid enough, but obviously he had a pretty high break even coming into this game of 119, so I think a lot of people are probably going to be switching him to maybe like an Adam Dewey in the next couple of weeks. The Panthers do versus the Broncos next week, so it might not be the best time to trade him out next week. But the week after that is definitely a good time to potentially move on to Matt Burton to one of these premium 5/8 or halfbacks like a Cam Munster, Adam Dewey, etc. Yeah, the Warriors were really competitive in this game, and it was just unfortunately all those injuries took their toll, and the Panthers are just too classy for them in the end, taking this one out 30 points to 16. So the second game on Sunday was the Broncos taking on the Tigers in what was actually quite an entertaining game as a neutral fan. A lot of points in this one. Tigers winning this one, 42 points to 24. definitely an understatement to say the defense really took a break in this game. Both teams were just conceding big line break plays, a lot of tries, a lot of points, but very, very entertaining as a neutral fan. As I mentioned, the big winner out of this was Adam Doueihi with 144. So I did say earlier in the video, Cam Munster doesn't have the high upside, so you should go for a Doueihi. At least you would have netted an extra 30 points going for Doueihi. He had 5 try assists in this game, had his hands in everything, goal kicking, although he did miss a few, but yeah, massive 144 out of Doueihi. The draw for the Tigers is really nice for the end of the season, and I think if there's only one Tigers player that you can go for, Adam Doueihi is the best option, definitely at 5'8". He is obviously listed at fullback, but fullback you're probably looking to load up with like a Tom Turbo, Pappenhausen or a Ponga, and then in the 5'8", a Cody Walker and an Adam Doueihi combo potentially could be the nice way to run home, or with a Cam Munster instead of a Doueihi. But yeah, Adam Doueihi, massive 144. Dane Laurie as well. Broncos just keep delivering points for opposition fullbacks. 92 points for Laurie here, scoring a try on his way to a nice score. Stefano Uichikamanu had a try in the very end of the game on his way to a big 90 points. So I know a few people actually who had Uichikamanu as his auto emergency, so that's a very, very nice score just coming off your bench there. Tommy Talau also scored, I think, what was a double on his way to an 82-point game there. Nofaluma, who I do own and I mentioned, is maybe a decent trade-in target in centre wing, given the Tigers' nice run for the rest of the season. He came away with 73, scoring a double. I mean, I will admit the second try was a bit scrappy, but you know what? Supercoach can't tell what the situation was. I'll take those points, thank you very much. So very happy to see a 73 there. And Luciano Leilua also was able to get some attacking stats with a try of his own on his way to a nice 72. And they were all the best performances out of the Tigers. And out of the Broncos, Jordan Ricky actually had the best game for them, scoring 98. Did score a try and had quite a few tackle breaks and I think a line break thrown in there as well. Payne Haas, again, looking like one of the best trading options, I think, for this week and moving forward. He did score 88. That did include another try assist and a line break assist. 2 weeks in a row, we've seen Payne Haas get some attacking stats, which is very, very rare to see, but I'll happily take those points as well. Setting up the try for Thomas Flegler, who I don't actually see scoring tries that often as well, on his way to 71. Tyson Gamble also was able to get a try assist and some decent tackle breaking stats there on his way to 66. Tessie New just seems to be very solid in any matchup because he is such a live wire that he gets a lot of tackle breaks, a lot of run meters, so he also scored very well with 61 here in a losing effort. No one else scored above 60 for the Broncos. I mean, you got Jermaine Asako on his way to a 56, definitely as a beneficiary of a lot of goal kicking. I will say that the Broncos' draw actually for the rest of the season isn't that bad, and they do seem to have a pretty decent attack in them. The question marks are always around their defense, but I think it could be potentially a punt that you can take on some of their attacking players. I think Tony Staggs is definitely going to be someone who a lot of people are going to be considering. He was a bit of an injury, there was a bit of an injury cloud over him coming into this game, but he did manage to play and suit up and scored 46. Whenever he gets the ball, he does look very threatening. The problem is that they don't seem to give him the quality early ball to let him do damage, which is the problem with going for like a Tony Staggs. But he's that good though that he can make any situation turn into a potential try scoring opportunity. So I really like Staggs as a buy for the remainder of the season if you have the trades left and you're looking for a bit of a point of difference at centre wing. We'll just need to take a close look at the matchups to see when they turn really nicely for the Broncos, because he could be a real point of difference there in your centre wing. But overall, as I mentioned, very entertaining game here. Tigers taking this one out 42 points to 24 over the Broncos. So final game of the round was the Rabbitohs taking on the Bulldogs, and what was a much closer game than I think a lot of people were anticipating. Rabbitohs just winning this one 32 points to 24. Really have to commend the Bulldogs for their effort. After the first 10 minutes, it looked like they were dead and buried and it was just going to be an absolute walloping, but they ended up coming back, and every time the Rabbitohs scored, they kept coming back into the game, so credit to them. They put in a dogged performance, pun intended. Their best performer was Ockenberg with 61. No one else scored above 60. Obviously, this is pre-updates as I'm recording on Sunday evening, but Corey Allen also did quite well with a 59. Josh Jackson, as always, pretty decent base with 55. Biondi Odo, I don't remember the first name, unfortunately, apologies. He scored a try, and I think it was on his debut as well, so very nice for him to score 57. But yeah, it was just a really overall quite a weird game. The fact that the Rabbitohs weren't able to put away the Bulldogs, and Lachlan Lewis, what the hell was that sin bin? Halftime, Cody Walker almost goes into score just before halftime. Siren goes, they're walking off the field, and then a little bit of chatter, and then Lachlan Lewis just bear hugs him, pulled him to the ground. Then just starts a bit of a melee. It was hilarious to watch, to be honest. I must admit, it was quite funny to see that. Sent to the bin. I don't know if that's a bit of argy-bargy, but yeah. Anyway, sin bin. So yeah, that was just quite funny overall. In terms of the Rabbitohs' best performances, I mean, Cam Murray has proven to be very, very good value in second row forward. I have to give a condolences to my friend though, who he was going to trade Tohu Harris to Cam Murray, but I said, oh no, Tohu Harris is starting. You should stick with Tohu. And then he put the trade back to Tohu, and he was going to trade to Murray, who scored 81, and Tohu scores 6. So I made him lose 75 points, so sorry, mate. But I was supposed to know that Tohu Harris was going to get injured after 15 minutes. Cam Murray's been doing super well. 81, he played at centre in the second half as Alex Johnson actually picked up a hamstring injury, so there was a bit of a backline reshuffling, but he did score a try as a result of that. Campbell Graham was the one who got the failed HIA, which was the reason why Cam Murray was playing at right centre. But Murray is going to be a very, very interesting proposition at second row forward, given that Tohu Harris is now out for the rest of the season. So Cam Murray definitely is a good point of difference second row forward to go for. South should have an amazing draw. He's got good attacking upside, and we're seeing that now in the past few weeks. So I really like Cam Murray as a buy for next week as well. Cody Walker, who I did captain and was the most highly captained player this round, he scored 72 pre-updates, which obviously it's not a bad score. The thing is nowadays we want our captain to score 100 plus. I was really banking on that. He might get paid some additional, I think like a try assist or a line break assist, something like that. So he might go up at like 10, 15. Obviously, as much as he can go, that'd be great for me as I get all the captaincy points. But yeah, overall, it's a bit disappointing that he only scored 72. Actually, I don't actually think he's actually done super well against the Bulldogs in the past. So I don't know, maybe that was just something to think about, but I don't think many people were expecting the game to go that way. I think they were all expecting a 50-0, not a 32-24. But yeah, 72 as captain, it's okay, but not amazing. Alex Johnson scored a double before he got his hamstring injury, which is looking like potentially 2 to 4 weeks out, according to NRL Physio. So hopefully it's just on the 2-week side of things. Obviously, the sooner we can get him back, the better. Trades are running so low. I don't know if it's worth trading him out. Hopefully you've built up some depth in your center wing that you can cover him hopefully for the next couple of weeks. But obviously it's all dependent on how long he actually is out for, and hopefully you get that news during the week. Kolomatangi and Dane Gagai also scored above 60 with 62 and 61 themselves. Nichols actually scored a try in his 100th game, so that was really funny to see, scoring 59, but no one else scored above 60. I mean, you had Tane Milne with a 56. He did score a try very early in the game, but didn't really do much else in terms of try scoring for the rest of the match, but 56, still solid enough from a very relatively cheap player at 378k. Unfortunately, as I mentioned, Campbell Graham did fail his HIA, so he only scored the 31 after getting a try assist for Tane Milne's try. And apart from that, not really much more other players to really chat about, I think, from the Rabbitohs side of things. I think the ones that we're all considering and all own are all the ones right at the top there. 81, 72 and 67 in Cam Murray, Cody Walker and Alex Johnston. But yeah, great game to cap off the round in what was really quite an entertaining round of rugby league. So hopefully you all enjoyed it as much as I did. Well, that's it, guys. That is the roundup number 18. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that little wrap up of the week. That was, as always, let me know in the comments below what you guys scored, what your trades were and all that, and what you're thinking about you're going to do in your team for the next week moving forward. So if you guys enjoyed the video, as always, really appreciate a thumbs up. Do please consider subscribing to the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next video.